You are the man from my dreams. The little boy's clear voice stopped the crowded border marketplace in a way no shouted command ever could. Rowan Blackwood turned instinctively toward the child standing beside a weathered fruit stall, expecting nothing more than an innocent mistake. Instead, he found a 5-year-old with chestnut hair catching the afternoon sun, bright green eyes fixed on him without fear, and a familiar silver ring hanging from a leather cord around his neck. Before Rowan could answer, the scent reached him. It was faint beneath fresh bread, pine smoke, and autumn rain, yet unmistakable. Royal blood. First guardian blood. The ancient fragrance carried by only one family in generations. His pulse tightened. Across the market, two strangers dressed as traveling merchants exchanged a quick glance before quietly changing direction toward the boy. Rowan recognized disciplined movement hidden beneath ordinary clothes. They were hunting someone. Finn. Ilara's voice, still soft after years of careful silence, carried across the square. The little boy spun happily and ran toward her, laughing as though danger did not exist. Rowan watched the woman emerge from the moving crowd, and 5 years vanished in a single heartbeat. Her long brown hair had grown slightly longer, her expression calmer, wiser, yet the determination in her green eyes remained unchanged. She stopped the instant she saw him. Neither moved. Around them, merchants continued bargaining while children chased one another through narrow stone streets, unaware that 3 lives had just collided again. Finn slipped his small hand into Ilara's. "Mom," he said with a smile, pointing toward Rowan, "he looks exactly like the man I always dream about." Ilara's face lost its color for only a fraction of a second before composure returned. She gently squeezed Finn's shoulder without taking her eyes off Rowan. Then one of the disguised hunters reached beneath his cloak, not for a weapon but for a polished silver compass etched with ancient ward symbols. Its needle swung sharply toward Finn. Rowan reacted before thought could catch him. He stepped into the crowded street, deliberately blocking the instrument's line of sight while pretending to examine a nearby merchant's display. The hunter frowned as the compass spun wildly, unable to settle on its target. Ilara understood immediately. She quietly guided Finn toward a different alley without running, knowing sudden movement would only confirm suspicion. Rowan followed at a careful distance, neither approaching nor revealing that he knew exactly who they were. Finn looked back once, waving cheerfully to the stranger who had unknowingly shielded him. Around the boy's neck, the old silver ring caught a beam of sunlight, and Rowan realized with quiet certainty that Ilara had never thrown away the last promise he had left behind. Ilara led Finn away from the market without rushing, choosing quiet side streets until they reached a small stone cottage hidden among towering pines beyond the border. Only after every window had been checked and every door secured did she finally face Rowan. 5 years of silence stood between them, heavier than any accusation either could have spoken. Finn looked from one adult to the other with innocent curiosity before disappearing into the next room to feed a sleepy orange cat that had claimed the cottage as its home. Ilara waited until she heard the boy humming softly before meeting Rowan's eyes. "He is your son," she said, each word deliberate after years of protecting her voice. Rowan closed his eyes for a single breath. Anger flashed across his face, not because she had hidden Finn, but because 5 years had vanished without a single chance to know his child. When he looked at her again, disappointment remained, yet his voice stayed calm. "Why didn't you trust me?" Ilara crossed to an old wooden chest and removed a leather folder sealed with cracked royal wax. She handed it to him without speaking further. Inside were copied council records, intercepted correspondence, and the sworn testimony of the palace healer who had first discovered the second heartbeat. One document froze Rowan where he stood. It authorized a secret ceremony to transfer the ancient curse into the unborn heir before the child's 6th birthday. Another listed the names of council members who had agreed the sacrifice was acceptable if it preserved the crown. At the bottom rested the signature of a senior official Rowan himself had promoted years earlier, believing the man honorable. Rowan read every page in complete silence. His jaw tightened, but he never questioned the authenticity of the evidence. He recognized his own royal archive markings and security seals. The conspiracy had been real. Elara had not fled to punish him. She had fled because she believed the palace could no longer protect their child. "I searched for you," Rowan said quietly. "Never to take him away. Never to force you home." Elara nodded, tears threatening but never falling. "I knew you would never harm Finn." She looked toward the closed bedroom door. "I no longer knew who beside you I could believe." Rowan folded the documents carefully and placed them back into the folder. "Then we find everyone responsible together." He did not ask to hold Finn. He did not claim any parental right. He simply accepted the truth that trust had to be rebuilt before family could be. A sudden crash echoed from the back of the cottage. Elara rushed toward Finn's room and threw open the door. The small window remained locked from the inside. The front door had never opened. Yet the room was empty. The wooden toy horse lay spinning slowly across the floor, and Finn had vanished from a house that had been sealed only moments before. For one impossible second, neither Elara nor Rowan moved. Then Elara's eyes dropped to the wooden floor beside the spinning toy horse. A tiny feather rested against the baseboard. She smiled despite the fear tightening her chest. "He left this for us." Rowan looked closer. The feather had been tied with a single strand of green thread from Finn's favorite satchel. Another clue waited beneath the window, where 3 small pebbles formed a neat triangle. He remembered the trail game, Rowan realized. Elara nodded. "Whenever we traveled, I taught him to leave signs if we were ever separated." They hurried outside, following a trail invisible to anyone else. Small pine cones rested upright on fence posts. A strip of blue cloth fluttered from a low branch. Tiny footprints deliberately crossed soft patches of mud before disappearing onto dry stone, forcing whoever followed to keep looking for the next clue. Rowan studied every marker with growing admiration. Finn had not panicked. He had been thinking. They reached the edge of the forest where wagon tracks circled a shallow stream. Elara noticed another message scratched into damp earth with a stick. It was not a word but the simple outline of a wolf's paw beside a crooked star. "He drew that whenever he wanted me to know he was brave," she whispered. Rowan crouched beside the drawing. The larger footprints surrounding Finn's smaller ones belonged to only one adult. The stride remained even. No signs of struggle disturbed the soil. "He walked willingly," Rowan said quietly. They continued through towering pines until an abandoned roadside shrine came into view. Hanging from one weathered post was the leather cord that normally carried Finn's silver ring. Rowan removed it carefully. The ring itself was gone. Elara's breathing caught. Rowan closed his eyes for a brief moment, searching not with magic but with memory. "He would never leave the ring unless he wanted us to understand something." Elara immediately remembered the stories she had told Finn. If danger ever came, the family treasure should never stay where strangers expected to find it. He had hidden it somewhere else. Nearby, Rowan discovered fresh boot prints beside a discarded messenger's satchel embroidered with a faded royal crest. The stitching was wrong. The colors were slightly uneven. "A counterfeit," Rowan murmured. Someone wanted him to believe the palace had sent help. They searched the satchel and found a folded sketch of Elara marked with a red circle beside her name. Beneath it, one sentence explained everything. "Bring the mother if possible. Secure the child regardless." Rowan's expression hardened, though not with anger alone. Finn saw this. Elara looked up in alarm. Rowan pointed toward a second set of tiny footprints leading deeper into the forest. "He followed the false messenger because he thought leading them away would protect you." Without another word, Rowan removed his heavy royal coat, wrapped it around Elara's shoulders against the growing evening cold, and started running toward the narrow mountain trail, already thinking exactly as a father determined to bring his son safely home. The trail ended at a weathered watchtower overlooking a narrow mountain pass where morning mist still clung to the pines. Rowan raised one hand, signaling Elara to slow down. Tiny laughter drifted from behind the crumbling stone wall. A heartbeat later, Finn stepped into view carrying an armful of wildflowers, completely unharmed. The moment he spotted his mother, he ran toward her with the fearless joy only a child could possess. Elara dropped to her knees, wrapping both arms around him before relief finally broke through the composure she had held for 5 long years. "I wanted them to follow me," Finn admitted quietly. "If they were chasing me, they could not find you." Elara closed her eyes, overwhelmed by equal parts pride and heartbreak. Rowan knelt beside them, searching the boy from head to toe for injuries. Finding none, he simply rested a reassuring hand on Finn's shoulder. "Next time," he said gently, "let the grown-ups help carry the danger." Finn nodded with the solemn sincerity only a 5-year-old could manage. As Elara brushed dirt from Finn's coat, something metallic slipped from his pocket onto the stone path. Rowan picked it up. It was an old silver council coin engraved with the forgotten crest abolished after the conspiracy 5 years earlier. One side had been deliberately scratched, revealing a tiny carved hawk hidden beneath the official seal. Elara recognized it instantly. Her expression changed before she spoke. "That mark." Rowan looked at her. "You know it?" She nodded slowly. "The person who warned me to leave the palace carried this symbol. They placed the healer's testimony inside my satchel the night I escaped." Rowan turned the coin over again. "You believed that person was dead?" "I did." Elara looked toward the distant mountains. "No one could have survived after helping us disappear." Rowan examined the shallow engraving more carefully. The hawk was not a family crest. It was a private signal once used by members of the Royal Intelligence Office. Someone inside the palace had secretly protected Elara from the beginning and had somehow remained hidden for 5 years. Finn tugged gently on Rowan's sleeve. "A nice lady gave me the coin," he explained. "She said if I ever met the man from my dreams, I should show it to him." Rowan's eyes widened slightly. "Did she tell you her name?" Finn shook his head. "She only said she still worked where the big throne lives." Silence settled over the mountain path. Rowan closed his fingers around the coin, its worn edges pressing into his palm. "This happened because I failed to see what was growing inside my own court," he said quietly. "I believed removing the conspirators ended the danger. I was wrong." Elara looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Then we stopped searching for ghosts." Rowan slipped the coin into his pocket and met her eyes with quiet resolve. "We start searching for the one ally who has been risking everything to keep our family alive." By sunset, the 3 of them stood on a wooded ridge overlooking the royal palace for the first time in 5 years. Its silver towers still dominated the valley, but the place no longer felt like home to Elara. It felt like unfinished truth. Rowan had already arranged quiet passage through an old service entrance known only to palace staff, and before crossing the outer wall, he handed Elara and Finn simple traveling cloaks bearing the insignia of provincial archivists. "Tonight," he said, adjusting the hood over Finn's head, "we are only record keepers." Finn grinned at the idea of pretending to be someone else, though Rowan reminded him that the game depended on staying close and speaking only when necessary. Once inside, familiar stone corridors stretched before Elara, unchanged except for the silence they now carried. No one recognized them beneath their plain clothing. Palace servants hurried past carrying ledgers and lanterns, never glancing twice at 3 ordinary workers. Their destination was the Hall of Lineage, where every royal blood record had been preserved for centuries. If the original genealogy still existed, it could prove why Finn had been hunted before he was even born. As they moved deeper into the palace, Elara felt a quiet warmth spread through the faint silver mark on her wrist. She instinctively looked toward Rowan. He paused at the same moment, touching the sleeve that concealed his own matching mark. Neither spoke about it. 5 years apart had weakened neither the bond nor the memories attached to it. Yet both understood that a magical connection could not repair broken trust by itself. Rowan quietly stepped aside, allowing Elara to decide every turn through the unfamiliar passages. When a nervous servant accidentally dropped an armful of fragile documents, Rowan knelt without hesitation to help gather every page before continuing the mission. Elara noticed the small gesture. He was no longer asking her to believe his promises. He was allowing his actions to speak instead. Reaching the oldest archive required passing a sealed iron gate protected by an ancient ward. Finn studied the glowing symbols for only a moment before whispering, "The left pattern is asleep." Rowan looked at him in surprise. The boy had inherited both his mother's eye for hidden structures and his father's instinct for ancient wards. Elara carefully adjusted one weathered stone beside the doorway exactly where Finn pointed. The silver barrier dissolved without triggering a single alarm. Beyond the gate stretched endless shelves filled with genealogy ledgers dating back hundreds of years. Dust floated through narrow beams of moonlight filtering from high windows. Rowan searched one row while Elara examined another. Finn wandered only a few careful steps before stopping beside a forgotten cabinet hidden behind collapsed shelving. "Mom," he whispered. "Somebody opened this recently." Rowan pulled the cabinet forward just enough to reveal a narrow passage descending beneath the archive. At the bottom of the stone staircase, a single lantern was already burning, as though someone had been waiting for them. The narrow staircase ended beneath the oldest foundation of the royal palace, where no official map admitted another chamber existed. Ancient stone walls curved around a circular room illuminated by a single lantern that had not burned itself. Someone had lit it recently. Elara stepped forward first, her fingers brushing shelves filled with sealed guardian journals untouched by dust. Rowan quietly closed the hidden door behind them while Finn wandered toward a carved mural showing two wolves standing beneath a silver moon. "They look happy," Finn whispered. Elara opened the nearest journal, its brittle pages marked with the same silver script she had seen years earlier inside the first Guardian archive. The final entries were written by Lyra Ashbourne herself. As she read aloud in her careful voice, every scattered clue from the past began falling into place. "The child born from the line of the Guardian and the line of the Alpha King shall never become the vessel of the curse. The child shall become its ending, but only if both bloodlines stand together by choice rather than fear." Rowan stared at the page in silence. Every secret council record they had uncovered claimed the opposite. They had all insisted the heir would absorb the curse. Elara continued reading. The journal described how ambitious rulers had deliberately altered the prophecy centuries earlier. If the true meaning became known, no council could control the crown by keeping the king isolated. Fear had become their greatest weapon. They convinced every generation that separation preserved the kingdom, when unity was the only path that could finally release it. Rowan lowered his head, remembering every forged contract, every altered archive, every manipulated birth record, and every lie that had driven Elara into exile. "They never wanted the curse to end," he said quietly. "As long as I carried it alone, they could rule through fear." Elara nodded slowly. "If we remain divided, the throne remained dependent on them." Finn looked up from the carved mural. "So, they wanted Mom and Dad to stay apart?" Neither answered immediately because the simplicity of the question exposed the truth more clearly than centuries of politics ever had. Rowan walked toward his son and knelt beside him. "Yes," he admitted softly. "Someone believed that would make the kingdom easier to control." Finn reached out and placed one small hand into Rowan's while his other hand found Elara's. The faint silver mark on Elara's wrist responded at once, glowing gently instead of blazing with overwhelming power. Rowan's matching mark warmed beneath his sleeve, and for the first time in years the familiar weight pressing against his heart became noticeably lighter. No ritual surrounded them. No ancient ceremony demanded obedience. The old journal had spoken plainly. The curse could not be broken by sacrifice or conquest. It could only begin to fade when trust replaced fear and both bloodlines chose the same future freely. Before any of them could absorb what that truly meant, a hidden mechanism clicked somewhere beyond the chamber wall, and another section of ancient stone slowly slid open, revealing a passage that none of the royal records had ever acknowledged. Morning sunlight filled the grand assembly hall as nobles, elders, governors, and representatives from every allied territory gathered beneath the restored ward crystals. Rumors had already spread through the palace that the Alpha King intended to make an announcement capable of reshaping the future of the crown. Rowan Blackwood walked to the center of the chamber without ceremonial fanfare. Elara stood beside him, her posture calm despite hundreds of eyes fixed upon her. Finn remained between them, holding each of their hands with the quiet confidence only a child could possess. Rowan allowed the silence to settle before speaking. 5 years ago, fear separated this family. His steady voice carried to every corner of the hall. Today I will not allow fear to decide our future again. He rested one hand gently on Finn's shoulder. This is my son. Gasps swept through the assembly. No one questioned the resemblance now that they looked closely at the boy's gray-green eyes and the faint silver mark that shimmered briefly beneath the collar of his shirt. Rowan continued before the whispers could grow louder. His existence is not a political claim. He is a child deserving the same freedom as every child in this kingdom. Several council members immediately urged that the royal heir should remain permanently inside the palace under official protection. Rowan listened without interruption before turning toward Elara instead of answering them. Where Finn lives will not be decided by the crown. Every voice in the chamber faded. That choice belongs first to his mother. Elara looked at Rowan in genuine surprise. He had publicly surrendered the very authority generations of kings would have claimed without hesitation. He was not giving away responsibility. He was acknowledging that love could not exist without choice. Rowan then knelt before Finn so they stood eye to eye. You have a choice too, he said softly. No one here will make it for you. Finn looked from his father to his mother, thinking carefully before answering with the seriousness that often made adults forget he was only 5 years old. I want to stay, for a little while. He squeezed Elara's hand. But only if Mom is never treated like someone beneath anyone else. The hall became completely still. Rowan smiled with quiet pride. Then that is the law from this moment forward. He rose and addressed the assembly once more. Elara Vale will stand beside this crown as an equal guardian. Any insult against her authority will be treated as an insult against mine. Even those who had once doubted her lowered their heads in acknowledgement. Elara felt years of fear quietly loosen inside her heart. Trust had not returned through promises. It had returned through choices freely honored. Just as the atmosphere softened, the great bronze doors opened again. A royal ambassador entered carrying an ivory case sealed with the oldest diplomatic crest in the kingdom. He bowed deeply before Rowan. Your Majesty, he announced, his voice echoing through the chamber, I bring the restored peace accord signed before the war, including the unresolved marriage treaty naming your future bride. Silence fell once more as the ambassador slowly opened the ancient document bearing the name of Elara's younger sister. The ambassador placed the ivory case upon the council table with careful precision, as though its weight carried the future of every allied territory. Rowan accepted the sealed decree without concern at first. The marriage treaty it referenced had been dissolved years earlier, or so every official record had confirmed after the conspiracy surrounding the royal council was exposed. He broke the royal seal and read the first page. Confidence slowly disappeared from his face. The document declared that an ancient peace agreement had never been legally terminated and remained binding under the oldest diplomatic law. Unless Alpha King Rowan Blackwood married Celeste Vale within 7 days, the alliance between the eastern and northern pacts would automatically dissolve, reopening territorial disputes that generations had worked to prevent. Murmurs spread across the great hall. Several governors immediately began arguing over troop movements and border security, while others questioned how such a treaty could have remained hidden for so long. Rowan ignored every voice around him. This agreement was annulled, he said calmly. I signed the cancellation myself. The ambassador lowered his eyes respectfully. Your Majesty, the Royal Archive now recognizes this version as the only surviving original. Elara stepped closer and silently requested the document. Rowan handed it to her without hesitation. She studied every line, not searching for political language but for something far more familiar. Her fingertips paused over the final signature. A tiny flourish beneath Rowan's royal seal curved slightly farther than it should have. The pressure pattern along the ink did not match the movement of a genuine ceremonial pen. She had seen the same imperfection years earlier beneath the forged guardian contract and the altered lineage records. Her heartbeat quickened. This signature was copied, she said quietly. The same hand that forged the ancient contracts created this decree. Rowan looked back at the page, recognizing the subtle difference only after Elara pointed toward it. The conspiracy they believed finished had never truly disappeared. It had simply changed its target. Finn looked from his parents to the silent council, sensing the unease without fully understanding it. He slipped his small hand into Elara's while Rowan folded the treaty with measured care instead of anger. No marriage built upon fraud can preserve peace, Rowan declared before the assembled court. We will verify every seal before any decision is made. No one challenged him openly, yet uncertainty spread through the chamber. Somewhere inside the palace, someone had once again rewritten history. Before another word could be spoken, a palace messenger hurried through the great doors carrying a small leather satchel marked with the same hidden hawk symbol Elara and Rowan had discovered only hours before. Breathless, he handed the sealed note directly to Elara. She opened it immediately. Inside was a single hurried sentence written in unmistakably familiar handwriting: "Do not let them search for me. I am Celeste Vale, and I have already run away."